listen, QB 26 is, in my opinion, far too low for a guy that has proven to be like a top 5 quarterback in fantasy football.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks. I'm Jason, he's Vaz, and today we are doing a buy video. We have done this before, but it's been a long time since we've actually given our opinions. I think it's been a couple of months, certainly before the NFL draft. So now we want to kind of circle back and give our opinions of the players that we are most interested in right now. We're going to have one player at each of the big four positions. We have each gotten a player each. Vaz, anything you want to add before we get started on this? Oh boy, if you want to get farted on this video. If you want to get started on this video, what do you think, Vaz?
Yeah, not a whole lot to add, but I'll say that I like picking out some guys to buy, and then I'll say that it's important to not just target those guys at the value that you think they're at, but then look at the value that they're perceived at by the community and make your offers based on that value. So I like to look for those kind of like I call them slam dunk trades, right? Where like you think like you're getting a player you value highly, and then maybe a pick added on top to like make this trade more like secure for yourself.
I hear you exactly. And yeah, we'll definitely get into things like that in terms of value of these players as well. So let's get started then with a quarterback that you are targeting right now, Vaz.
Okay, so my buy at quarterback is Deshaun Watson, somebody who is valued very low by the community right now. On Keep Trade Cut, he's the QB 26. Now, for me in my personal rankings, he's at QB 17, so a pretty wide margin. And the reason is like, listen, QB 26 is, in my opinion, far too low for a guy that has proven to be like a top 5 quarterback in fantasy football. He's got the talent. We know he's got the talent. It's other issues that has him so low. And I think right now, if he's valued at QB 26, that's around like a mid-second round pick. I'm not sure if you can trade a mid-second round pick for him, but I think if you have like the 203 or 204, I think you could definitely trade that for him. I will tell you a trade I just made for him, in fact, in a 12 team 2 QB league I'm in. So not a SuperFlex, but a 2 QB league. So QBs are a little bit more valuable. I had pick 106, 111, and 204 in this rookie draft that just happened. And I ended up on the clock at 106 at the top of my tier and didn't like my options. I think my options were Drake May or JJ McCarthy, basically. So I messaged the Watson owner and traded 106 for Watson and the 201. So basically, what I did was I turned JJ McCarthy into Deshaun Watson and what turned out to be Bo Nix. So totally reshaped my quarterback room. So yeah, I really love that trade. I got a guy in Watson who I value at around the same place as JJ McCarthy, and then got basically Nix for free. So I love insulating trades like that.
Yeah, I like that. And, you get one guy with experience and you get a young guy with upside instead of kind of putting all your eggs in one basket with, a young guy with upside. Yeah, no pushback on that. I like Watson as well, certainly more than the community does. And a guy that I definitely like much more than the community is Russell Wilson. I've said this before, but right now he is rated as the 33rd quarterback on Keep Trade Cut, which is absolutely ridiculous. I get it that he's on the decline, perhaps, or certainly perceived to be. But look at his numbers from last season. They're not bad from a fantasy perspective. Now, of course, that only matters if you can keep a job. And he does have a starting job this season. It's with a new team, but I think it's in a position where he's got an opportunity to succeed. They wanted him. He was able to choose where he could go essentially because he was, essentially released and had the option. So he was able to talk to all the different people and say, look, if I'm going to go to your team as a choice for essentially league minimum, I'm, benefiting your salary cap, then what are you going to do for me? And I'm sure he had conversations with everyone. Tomlin is a player's coach, and I'm sure that he's going to give him the opportunity there. If he doesn't do well, yes, he does have Justin Fields behind him, but that's just more pressure for him to actually succeed. So I like Russell Wilson's chances, and you can get him at such a bargain. This is a guy that you used to have to pay 2 first-round picks for, perhaps, but now you can probably get him for a mid-second round, maybe even a third-round pick. So when you consider that cost, I think the upside for him to, rejuvenate his career and gain significance once again is very good.
Yeah, I agree with you. Quarterback 33 is just far too low for Russell Wilson, who's proven that he's like a very capable starting NFL quarterback. He's probably an average starting NFL quarterback. I looked on Keep Trade Cut at where he was valued, and I couldn't believe that he was in the same tier as Gardner Minshew and Sam Howell. I couldn't believe it. Like he's below Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, who I think he's a better quarterback than these guys. And I know they're younger, but in my mind, these guys are all just like on 1 year deals. Basically, they're all in prove it years. Like if they don't perform this year, they're all backups next season. So I think like if I had to choose between Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, and Russell Wilson, I'm definitely not taking Daniel Jones, but I'm probably going Geno or Russell just because I believe them in them a little bit more.
Yeah, and of course, when Sean Payton took over the Broncos, I really believe that he went in thinking that he was not going to use Russell Wilson. I think it was already in his mind. I don't think he was going in there, well, okay, I'm going to go in and revitalize Russell Wilson. I think he knew that he had a 10-year contract and he was going to have the leeway or leverage to go in and eventually take his guy. And I don't think he was necessarily trying to make it work with Russell Wilson. I think, all the talk in the locker room and those sort of issues have contributed to, his reputation. So I think now that he gets a fresh start with a good players coach in Tomlin and Pittsburgh, I think he's got an opportunity to succeed. Like, once again, I'm not saying that he's going to succeed. What I am saying is considering the price of the gamble that you're making here, you just have so much going in your favor.
Yeah,
Let's talk
absolutely.
about the running back that you are targeting right now.
All right. So the running back I'm targeting right now is Nick Chubb. So a very talented player and somebody who's, in my opinion, too low in the community rankings. Right now, he on Keep Trade Cut, he's valued at running back 34. And I'll say that before the injury last season, he was valued at running back 6 on Keep Trade Cut. So the decline has been massive for him. In my personal rankings, he's at RB 21, I believe. Let me just check that to make sure. Yeah, he's at RB 21 in my personal rankings and RB 34 on Keep Trade Cut. So right now on Keep Trade Cut, he's valued at around the 212 or like the 301. So like you could get him for a late second round pick. And I looked on to some similar running back rankings on Keep Trade Cut. Like guys that are ahead of him on Keep Trade Cut are Brian Robinson, Zach Charbonnet, Condre Miller, and he's right in the same tier as receivers like Josh Downs, Jamison Williams, and Troy Franklin, who is just a fourth round pick. So like you can get him for, in my opinion, next to nothing. Like even the younger running backs I mentioned, Brian Robinson, Zach Charbonnet, we never know if they're even going to put up like running back 1 seasons. I don't know if they're capable of that. We know that Chubb is definitely capable of that. And it speaks to me that the Browns kept him on the roster, paying him $10 million this season. They didn't want to let him go. They believe in his talent. They believe in the player. They want him on their team. And they didn't add anybody significant in the offseason either. This is his team. This is his backfield. When he's healthy, he's going to see the field. He's going to get the vast majority of the touches. And he's so good. He's a good enough player that the minute that happens, he's going to skyrocket up rankings. Skyrocket. The minute he shows he's healthy, the minute he shows he's like 90% of what he used to be, he's going to skyrocket up rankings. So now is the time to buy him. You could get him for a late second round pick. You could get him for Ryan Robinson. Like, go out and do that. Go if you can get him for Josh Downs, go out and do that. Like, go get this guy that is going to shoot up rankings as soon as he proves he's healthy.
Yeah, I think if he were to get 15 points in either week 1 or week 2, I think that's all it would take for people to regain confidence in him. And I really don't think that's asking for much out of a guy who did that on the regular in the past. So certainly the value is way too low, and I couldn't agree more. The only thing that I will say, though, is there's a guy that's being valued ridiculously worse than Chubb, and that's my guy. His name is Derrick Henry. I've talked about him many times before on this channel, and once again, I can't believe that he's listed as, I think, running back 20 on Keep Trade Cut. I think I've got him at 13 on my list, but I'll be honest. The reason I have him at 13 is kind of where I see him in between where I actually believe that he's going to be compared to what the community is at. You know how like you'll kind of bring that back a little bit so that, because I know that I can get him for less than I'm willing to pay. And I guess I actually have him in every single league that I'm in. So it just shows you that I've already gone out to acquire him in the leagues that I can get him. But his ability, he's been a top 4 running back in 3 of the last 5 seasons. Now, the only 2 seasons that he wasn't a top 4 running back in the last 5 years was when he got hurt, and he was on pace to be a top 2 running back. He had 180 points in like 8 games. He was on pace for more than 20 points a game in one of those years, and the other was last year when Tennessee absolutely sucked. There was no reason to use him that much in the second half. But now that he's in Baltimore, he's got Lamar Jackson. I've talked about this before. He is going to just go through people, and he's going to have less people to run through because there's going to be a spy on Lamar Jackson. So his single season, I think for redraft leagues, I have him as a top 5 running back for redraft leagues. Now, yes, he's 30 years old. Yes, he's old, but do I believe he'll be a top 5 running back this season? I absolutely do. He's done it so many times before, and now he's in a better situation to do that. So what happens? Even if you're not going to be able to win this season, you can move him at the trade deadline because you're going to have teams that are competing, that are trying to win a championship, and they're going to be bidding against each other for his services. I'm sure you'll be able to get at least a late first round pick from the competing team that goes on, and perhaps you'll be able to get even a little bit more on top of that. People do stupid things when they're trying to win a championship. So I am very, very big on Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I'll just I agree totally with what you're saying. I'll just say that listen, in terms of his age, like yes, he is 30 years old, but like he's still a great player. He showed last year, even in his limited touches with Tennessee, not limited touches, but limited compared to what he's had in the past, that he's still very good, even at 30 years old. Like, for example, you could have Derrick Henry or you could have a younger running back in Joe Mixon. Who are you taking? Like, for me, they've both got 1 to 2 years left. Like, Joe Mixon is more expensive in the community's eyes because he's a younger player. But at this point, who cares? They've both got 1 or 2 years left. So get the running back who is going to give you more production in the next 1 or 2 years, and that's Derrick Henry. Don't worry about age at this stage in his career. Think about it as he's a 2 year commitment. He's not giving you more than 1 or 2 years, but there's a lot of running backs like that. Get the guy you need, get the guy you want to win you a championship, and he's that guy, and he's cheap. You can get him for like a mid-second round pick right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to look at wide receivers. You have picked a Cleveland quarterback and a Cleveland running back. Does that
I
mean that
didn't
you've
even
got
realize that.
are you not going Jerry Judy as
No, I'm
your
not.
wide receiver this time?
I didn't even realize that. That's awesome. Okay, yeah, no, my receiver is in fact Rashee Rice. Uh, yeah, Rashee Rice. So on Keep Trade Cut, he's the wide receiver 47. I couldn't believe that. The wide receiver 47. 6 months ago, he was the wide receiver 14. Okay, so this is a massive, massive decline just based off these off-field issues, which in my mind, like, of course they're significant. It shows he's an idiot, but like he's not going to miss a lot of game time. He's going to miss a couple games, and then like come week 4, week 5, when he's, getting 10 targets and 8 receptions for 94 yards and a touchdown, he's going to shoot up rankings again. Wide receiver 47 is absurd. Okay. He's my wide receiver 29, which I think even feels too low because, like, talent wise, he should be, a high end wide receiver too. Like, Waddle or in that range, in my opinion. But because of the off field issues, I've pushed him down. But wide receiver 47, in my opinion, is absurd. Let me name some players that are going ahead of him on Keep Trade Cut right now. Okay. All these guys are ahead of him on Keep Trade Cut. Adonai Mitchell, Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Legette, Christian Watson. 4 unproven young players all going in the middle of the second round. Okay. Then older players, Cooper Kupp, Amari Cooper, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. All 4 of these guys are 30 years old or over. Okay. So Rashee Rice is capable of giving you more production than all 4 of those old receivers I named this season, okay, per game, on a per game basis, and he's 7 or 8 years younger than them. Why is he so low? I cannot understand it. Go out and get this guy. He's valued at a late second round pick right now. In my opinion, he's worth a late first round pick. This is a massive difference in value. Go out and get Rashee Rice. If you can use a mid second round pick on him, go out and do that. If you can take, I don't know, Devontae Adams and turn him into Rashee Rice, do that. If you're a rebuilding team, try to use some of your older veterans. If another team, like a competing team, has Rashee Rice and they're worried about it, use some of your veterans to go out and buy him.
Okay. I am not as high on Rice as you are. And the reason for that is because the wide receiver that I am buying right now is in direct competition with Rice. The guy that I'm banking on is Hollywood Brown. And for me, I think he is going to be the guy. I know that he's just on a 1 year contract, but I think for him, once again, this is finally his opportunity. He was in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson for 3 seasons, finally decide, okay, I've got to get out of here. I just have no game playing in this system. And he felt bad about it. He apologized to Lamar Jackson, but he said, I got to go be me. I went to Arizona, and what happens? Kyler Murray's not even playing. So he really hasn't been in a situation that really accentuates his talents yet. Finally, what does he do? Hey, I've got to go to Kansas City. I'm going to play with Patrick Mahomes on a 1 year contract, and I'm going to use this to vault my career. Ideally, I think what he wanted to do was get that 1 year contract, prove himself, and perhaps even just stay in Kansas City by signing a long-term deal. I believe that with the drafting of Xavier Worthy, that might not be in play, but at the very least, what he does know that if I want to be considered an upper tier wide receiver, then I have to prove myself this year. He's got a lot of pressure on him to succeed. And what's his competition? Well, we've got Rice. Is he a good wide receiver? I absolutely agree. However, he's going to miss at least the start of the season. How many games? It might be 1 or 2 games, but we don't know that. It could be 5 or 6. It could be, who knows what the next stupid thing that he does is and gets him released from the team. So there's all these other variables. If Rice has already done 2 dumb things this offseason, who's to say that he's not capable of a third? His other competition, Xavier Worthy. Yes, they put a lot of draft capital in him. They traded up to get him in the first round. However, he is still just a rookie. And how many rookies succeed early on in the season? Sure, maybe he's capable of being offensive rookie of the season. However, what is his first 2 or 3 week numbers going to be compared to his last 2 or 3 week numbers? The one thing that does do is it gives Hollywood Brown an opportunity in those first few weeks to really establish him as the alpha in that room. I believe in his talent, and I believe in his desire to succeed, and I believe in the fact that he's playing with Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, so this one you're gonna get a bit of pushback from me. I feel it's a bit short-sighted. I think, like, the fact that they gave him a 1 year contract for 7 million shows how they feel about him. I think it's very possible he's like the 4th option in the offense. I'll just say though, it all depends on value. Like, but when I look at his value and Keep Trade Cut, he's a lot lower than I expected. I think he's already fallen quite a bit since they picked Xavier Worthy, but he is still ahead of Rashee Rice, which seems criminal to me. I'm not taking him over Rashee Rice. a guy that's 5 years or 4 years younger and proven in one season in the NFL that he's a better player than Hollywood ever was. But it all depends on value. Like if you can get Hollywood for a late second because they drafted Xavier Worthy and you do like him, like I do think he's a good player. Even if he doesn't stay with KC next year, I think he's good enough that he's a wide receiver two on most other NFL teams. He's good at what he does. He stretches the field. He's a good perimeter player. I don't think he's a great PPR receiver, but if you play in a non-PPR format, maybe he's a good target for you. So yeah, it all depends on value, but there's no way I'm taking him over Rishi Rice, and currently he's valued at more than Rishi Rice.
Yeah, I mean, I know Rice has had a solid season in his rookie year, but for me, the question is, how would Rasheed Rice have done if he was in Baltimore as, like a Zay Flowers type guy, or taking catches from, somebody else other than Mahomes? And I think that's the question that I want to see answered this season with Hollywood Brown. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and we're finally going to see what happens with it. But the proof will be in the pudding early on this season.
Now, I can't do it for you. The inches we need are everywhere around us. What are you gonna do? Like! 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 Subscribe! 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 Subscribe!
Let's take a look at a tight end that you are high on this season.
All right, so the tight end I chose is Dallas Goedert, who's currently the 17th ranked tight end on Keep Trade Cut, and he's in my top 12 of my personal rankings. So the reason I chose Goddard is because I am much higher than on him than the community, and it's because I like his talent. He's still very young for a tight end. Of course, he's not in a high volume passing offense, and he's the third option there. But I think like talent wise, he's one of the best tight ends in the NFL, and I think he's proven when he's been healthy that he commands targets and he commands volume. So I think he's a very good player. I think ideally in fantasy football, you want one of those elite tight ends, and he's not that. He's in the second tier. But if you can't get a top tier tight end, or if you want a guy like Goddard for as your second tight end, I think it's a great play in fantasy football just because he is immensely talented. And if an injury did happen to Devonta Smith or AJ Brown, he would step into a very huge, large target share and a very large opportunity in Philly.
Okay. I'm honestly not as high on Goddard. I'm kind of more with where the community's at. I see him as an aging guy who's had some injury issues here and there. But the guy that I'm high on is Jake Ferguson. And when I look at what Dallas did this offseason, they didn't add really any pass catchers unless you want to call Brandon Cooks, a threat to targets. But Ferguson broke out last season. He was tight end number 8 last season. So you have a tight end number 8 now going into his third season with a receiver room that hasn't really added anyone. On those numbers, I think CeeDee Lamb should have a similar season to what he did last year. And I think Jake Ferguson should have a similar season to what he did last year. And if he does, I think a lot of people will look at him differently, because I think a lot of people are thinking a bit of that, well, show me again. Like I think for me, I kind of have that attitude with Trey McBride to a certain degree. Is like, wow, I mean, that's how high the community is on him. Show me again this year that you can do. And I think the same thing with Jake Ferguson. People are thinking, well, show me again. I think he's got a good opportunity to be able to show people again based on the competition for targets. If he stays healthy, I could totally see him having another solid season.
So Jake Ferguson is a guy I like for redraft. I think he's already peaked. I think that like last season was his is as much value, as much fantasy production as you're going to get from him, because he's not an immense talent. But he is tied to Dak Prescott, who does like to use the tight end and does have a good rapport with him. So from a redraft perspective, I really like it. From a dynasty perspective, I don't like it so much. I think he's already valued a little bit too high by the community. I'd rather have Goddard, who's much lower and, in my opinion, a better player. Right now, you can get Goddard for a very late second round pick or even a high third round pick in your rookie draft, and I think he's just definitely worth that.
All right.
Whereas I think Ferguson is valued at like a mid second round pick.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. There you have it. Those are players that we are targeting or very high on compared to the community for Dynasty SuperFlex teams. This is basically in a 12-team SuperFlex format that we're talking about, but go out and get these guys right now. This is how we view them after the NFL draft and as we get ready for the upcoming season. Soon, we're also going to come up with a list of players that we are low on, guys that we don't believe in compared to the rest of the community. So stay tuned for that video. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel so that you know when that video is going to be produced and put out to you. Vaz, before we wrap up, any final words either on what we talked about today or our next video coming up?
So I don't know if you've noticed, but I really love talking about values and trading. So I'd like to offer a suggestion to anyone who would like some tips on making trades. Come visit our Facebook page, and I would love to share or analyze your trades and give my in-depth analysis on your trading. So please come join our Facebook group and mention any trades you might be considering or trades you've just made recently, and I'll discuss it with you.
All right. And our Facebook group, the link to that is in the descriptions below, so you can check that out to join the group. Remember to like the video as well. And otherwise, we'll see you next time on another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks.